In episode number 385 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover the early Birds of Prey screenings for DC Universe subscribers.
We also have this year's BROSCAR Awards. We've got your picks as well as ours.
And our comic book highlight this week is Detective Comics Annual number 3.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I am your Emperor Kelli.
And I am Twins Daniel. You forgot award-winning. We gotta tout that every single week.
That's true. Award-winning Reasons I'm Broke podcast. The way we format the show is first we're going to start out with some news. We have our Patreon shout-outs, our comic book highlight this week, our Broke Cat Block, which is what happened with Daniel and I, and of course, the BROSCARs, 2019 BROSCARs.
Starting things off with some comic book news, DC has teased the forthcoming, inevitable Dark Knight's Metal sequel titled Encore, and it has an image of Wonder Woman wielding a chainsword.
What's a chainsword?
It is a sword made up as a chainsaw, or a chainsaw with the little sword handle on it. Basically, it's a chainsaw sword. It's metal as fuck. Talk to Greg Capullo, because I'm sure he made that up.
I'm sure it was the most metal thing he could think of. So, of course, Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder will return to work on this new book. You know what I think of this book?
Who cares?
Who cares?
I know you didn't. I wasn't crazy about that first miniseries either, but there were some great characters that came out of it.
Now, you need to slow down, because the first 3 episodes, you were just talking, issues, whatever. You were just talking about how great it was. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting here like, not that great. And you're like, it's wonderful, Kelli. It's so good. And then now you're like, I didn't really like it. No backpedaling.
It had a terrible landing. It got really out of hand quick. And that was the first book where I'm like, I don't think Scott Snyder can handle team books. And Justice League after that further proved that along, that Scott Snyder is best used when he's doing more intimate stories with single characters, just like he did with The Court of Owls, and hopefully with a little bit of a horror element, since that seems to be what he likes to do.
Do you think this new book will focus solely on Wonder Woman or mostly on Wonder Woman?
The cover seems to show just Wonder Woman on there, and it looks like some people pointed out that the Batman Who Laughs skull is on her as a part of her outfit. Whether it's the head or she's been murdering all these metal characters, I don't know. I know we're going to get more metal characters and villains out of it, so I'm excited for that. If they're going to do more of the foil covers, I think that's going to be really successful in launching the book. Honestly, if they just redo what they did the first time and do a bunch of one-shots with the metal villains in that same format, I don't know if it'll do as well as that first go-around, but it'll be a strong-ass seller.
Do we have any idea when we will see this hit the shelves yet?
Since they're hinting at it now, I bet you it'll start off at what's after April, May? It'll be a May release. It's got to be in the next previews catalog after this one. Right after the latest one hits, they always start, all right, and here's this, and here's that. All right, well, now we know it's going to be the next catalog. And we're still waiting for 3 Jokers to get solicited. Hasn't been. There's a number of books that we're still waiting on, but one of the ones that we know we're getting is Dark Knight's Metal, and probably soon we'll start seeing that 5G movement as well.
Something that we will not be seeing anytime soon comes from Marvel Studios, who has canceled the Howard the Duck animated series on Hulu.
Oh no, I wanted to see that. Oh, Marvel Studios.
Marvel.
Man, now Antigra and Dazzler was also shelved.
I wanted to see that.
That's the second one I wanted. Like this, these were the shows that I was gonna be like, all right, at Marvel Studios, I will give you another shot. You've made some shit with the films. Let's see what you can do on TV, even though they did some shit on TV as well. But I'm like, well, let's give your cartoons a shot. And dang, now I can't watch them. I was really going to give them a sincere chance.
I'm sure you were. You're going to watch one episode and criticize it the whole time.
Was I even going to watch one?
No, probably not.
We have a quote here from writer/executive producer Kevin Smith.
He said, quote, I got a text from fellow executive producer Dave Willis in the morning saying, we got Tigra and Dazzlered. I called him and asked, is this what I think it means? And Dave said he had just got the word that there will be no Howard the Duck show. The only explanation was, we have no plans for this character at this time. End quote.
Originally, these cartoons were set to be 2 of 4 shows that would make up a connected cartoon universe as a team called The Offenders. Man, that would have been cool.
Oh, man.
God.
You were so ready for it.
Man, I had Hulu ready and everything.
You got Hulu just for this.
And now I'm gonna just cancel Hulu. Like if they're not gonna release that,
right.
and now Marvel Studios really has no shot with me. I'm really not gonna watch anything since they're not. The animation was my one door in, back in. Mm-hmm. They shut that door on me. I guess that's that.
There's a lot of sarcasm in his voice for those of you who are picking it up. He wasn't gonna watch either of these.
I know Kevin Smith did say that the writers were all paid. He was paid. So he was like, we're not angry because we all got our thing, but we worked so hard on it as far as what the writing got done. And they're more disappointed that no one got to see their hard work.
That would be pretty tough, but at least they paid them, right? It wasn't like they were, we canceled and now no more, no money for you. But that also means that they don't get the opportunity to continue it and to continue making that money. So, that's tough.
Something on the independent side that we are going to get to see, not on the small screen, but on the big screen, is Spawn, as his creator, Todd McFarlane, has given us an update on his self-directed project of this live-action film.
He said, quote, I've gotten a lot of interesting offers, and luckily this movie called Joker came out. When I was at New York Comic Con, Joker came out, and Hollywood has a penchant for looking at what works and then doing it 10 times over, end quote.
And this was through an interview with Newsarama. How much did that help?
I'm going to pause and say I don't think ever in any way Spawn will be on the same level that Joker was.
In any way.
Let's just be realistic. So I don't really think that a reputable anybody is looking at the script for Spawn and saying, oh yeah, this will be just like Joker. Let's give you money for it. He may have received money from people who are like, oh yeah, it's darker just like Joker, but not anybody who really understands.
That's how these these investors, that's how they convince these people. And I've seen it in various interviews where they're like, these guys don't really watch these fucking movies. No. They just want to get that bottom line. And this is why the Marvel comics are the way that they are, because these Disney executives, they don't give a shit about what the books are doing. They just want to see the money. And that's how you convince people that are going to put in money into Spawn. You go, hey, this movie just made $1 billion and ours is rated R. And ours is comic book based, and ours could be considered he is a villain, in fact, and he's going to be sympathetic because of his origin. This is also his origin, much like Joker's origin, and that's how they go, you know what? This could also make us a lot of money. Here you go. No. He's convinced them. I'm sure he's convinced them. And you're right, though. It's not going to, I don't see it being an art piece like Joker was. I don't see it being well written or heavy special effects either. Well, no, at least the lead will be good with Jamie Foxx. The talent will be there, but that's where the talent will stop.
It's not going to win an Oscar or get nominated.
We may be able to get a BROSCAR or something. I don't know, like a sympathy BROSCAR. And
are we going to have a sympathy category next year? It tried.
It fooled investors. I'm rooting for it though, because you don't want it to just be Marvel Studios out there on the big screen. And obviously DC Comics, but you want to see other properties also make it. And hopefully there is an audience and a market for that R-rated Spawn film. My main concern is I want it to be well made.
Only time will tell. However, a movie that I do still continue to have high hopes for is Birds of Prey, and director Kathy Yan shared how she was able to successfully pitch her vision of the film to WB in an interview with Variety.
She said, quote, I related it to my personal growth. It's about Harley as well as the other birds coming into their own, recognizing that they are stronger together than they are apart. I gravitated to that feeling. I felt like I was going through a lot of similar self-awareness, realizing that I can be a director, I can do this, finally settling into that confidence, end quote.
I think that's pretty cool how she tied it into her own personal journey. Because I feel like as people, we're always constantly growing and going through a journey. And if, she's having those experiences herself, that's really going to help and affect how she brings this vision to life.
She had also talked to Patty Jenkins while they were filming to get some words of support because she was struggling. And Patty essentially told her, look, no one knows your movie like you do.
Right.
So have that confidence and know that you are the director. And she said that helped her out a lot and gave her that help in not second or third guessing every single decision. Because usually, at least I think, when you're working on an art project, that first instinct seems to be the right one.
This movie releases on February 7th, so incredibly soon. By the time this episode airs, you're less than a week away.
And we have our tickets all set up. We will have a review for you here in about 2 weeks. More Birds of Prey news, though. In an interview with Nerdist, Birds of Prey star Margot Robbie explained why she stepped away from the idea of doing Gotham City Sirens and instead went for the Birds of Prey team.
She said, quote, "So what if we had a platform for fans to get to know and fall in love with some of these other amazing women? Focusing on the Gotham City Sirens, there were only 3 of us, and we were all well known. Whereas with Birds of Prey, you can pick any grouping for that. And I thought that might be the perfect platform to introduce some female characters who might really have some legs in the DC universe." End quote.
We are big fans of Gotham City Sirens, and she has said that she would like to one day explore the relationship between Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. And then the way that she was quoting that, it seems like Poison Ivy won't make any kind of cameo in Birds of Prey. But as a fan of Gotham City Sirens, that original book by Paul Dini, that comic series, beautiful artwork by Guillaume Marc. How do you feel about these particular comments while you are at the same time excited for Birds of Prey?
I'm really conflicted because, yes, I think as a whole, I would have preferred to see a Gotham City Sirens movie. I do really enjoy that team. Obviously, I love Catwoman, right? Catwoman and Batman and their dynamic. But when you mentioned how she would like to explore the relationship with Poison Ivy and Harley, I don't think, if that's the direction they're trying to go, right? Realistically, I think it would be difficult to have in the time that we're in right now, right? You're not going to get as big of a following. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. 2020, people are changing all the time. But if you had a movie that really focused or had a strong piece of that was their romantic relationship, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe you wait 5 more years and then there's more of an opportunity and then it's more commonplace in big screen in the media.
I almost felt like we didn't get much of a romantic relationship between Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn in Gotham City Sirens. It was more about the 3 characters and their friendship and learning to work with one another being incredibly different. The dynamic between Batman and Catwoman and their relationship came into some hardships while she was also trying to remain loyal to her friends. And some of their missions did end up intertwining. And for the most part, Batman ended up kind of just stepping away from all of that. And they had a little bit of a falling out, but I would have liked to have seen Gotham City Sirens. I know David Ayer, who directed the first Suicide Squad, which we did enjoy, was attached to that project at some point, and now it sounds like Ayer isn't involved in any kind of DC live-action project, unfortunately, but maybe one day we'll get that Ayer cut of Suicide Squad, and who knows if any of those ideas that he had for Sirens will someday come to light, and we'll get some of that via Twitter even, if he one day talks about it, if someone asks him. But I do think that Birds of Prey is going to be a hit. I think it's going to do well. These characters, because of that, will benefit. I don't know how much of a long-term effect it'll have as far as Huntress fans and Black Canary and Renee Montoya, if she becomes the question in this. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be too much. I know Harley Quinn is obviously the star in this, and she wanted this to be an all-female project when she headed this project completely. Margot Robbie was very conscious in bringing all the stars with her. Anytime you see them in interviews or going to the premiere, they're all together. She's really raising everyone up to that kind of high level of stardom that she's more or less now used to because of these massive movies that she's made, a lot of which have been nominated for Academy Awards and are nominated this year, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I think her heart is in the right place, and I think Birds of Prey will do well. But like you, I am conflicted because I would have liked to have seen that trio on the big screen.
It will be incredibly interesting to see how they portray this very different group of females, knowing now that she wanted, and it sounds like she really wanted a project that anybody could relate to, that no matter where you are in your life or your career or, even relationships, that you could find something in this group of women, one person that you could relate to that could draw you in. It'll be really cool to see if they go that route genuinely, how they portray each of these different women.
And if you want to see Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn a little bit early, check your inbox because DC Universe subscribers are getting early screenings to this movie in select theaters throughout the U.S. I know there were 3 theaters here in Florida when I had looked them up. One was in Miami, one was in Apopka, and I forgot where the last one was, but they're somewhat nearby. They're pretty well scattered as far as you'll have to drive a little bit to get to this theater, but if you really want to see this movie early, there are ways to do it.
The screenings will take place February 4th to February 5th, and an email was sent out with a submission form to subscribers. So not all subscribers, right? Just select ones? How did they get chosen? Did we get chosen?
From what I understand, it should have been all subscribers. And then if you want to go in and then fill out the form, then you can go and watch these movies. Well, I'm guessing you pay for the ticket.
I mean, probably. Did we get chosen?
At the time that we're recording this, they're sending them out tomorrow.
What?
So at that point, we can take a look and see if maybe we can make it work. But that should be on a Tuesday and Wednesday night. So a couple of days early before it releases nationwide. I think this is a good way to reward these Universe subscribers. This is the right idea. And I know they did something on a smaller scale with Aquaman where a couple of people would get flown out to the premiere. And that was really neat. But this is a way that it's easier for anyone who has DC Universe to get in on the action. And I think if they do more of these early screenings or early access to things like their animated movies that they're releasing, all of that is going to retain their subscribers and it's going to make us feel like we're really getting a good value for that subscription.
Especially if we still have to pay for the ticket for something like this. What does it really cost DC Universe? Nothing. They're sending it to a theater early and we're still paying for the ticket. And we're happy. We're fine with that.
I wonder if they get a cut from Warner Brothers Studio for this because it's kind of a separate type of division in Warner Brothers.
Maybe.
So.
I want Warner Brothers to be listening and they're like, oh, we weren't going to make them pay for the ticket. Change it!
Well, more tickets that will now have to get paid for comes through MoviePass users. This was founded in 2011, but MoviePass has finally filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. I've never been a fan of bankruptcy or MoviePass. Of MoviePass. If you've been a longtime listener, you know I was heavily shitting on this in 2017 and early 2018 because of the way that they were not working with theaters, not working with studios, wanted a bigger cut taken away from what they had to pay for every ticket that was sent out. And I know one of our listeners was a major proponent of MoviePass and was, we were going back and forth about it, how I thought it was shitty, he thought it was great. And when I learned that MoviePass gets charged per ticket that you use, because people were going every single day to the theater for the $9.99 or a little bit higher at one point, that they then had to pay up. So they were going in the negative because obviously people were watching more than 3 movies a month for that subscription. So I told them, hey man, actually keep using it as much as you can because the more you go, the faster they're going to go under. And that's what ended up happening.
Surprise. So if you didn't know about MoviePass before, the service gained popularity in 2017 for giving users unlimited movie passes for just $9.99 a month.
They had struggled because I think at one point they were as high as $50 a month, and then over the years they went down lower and lower to that $9.99 price point. My friend Clayton, who works at a movie theater, told me all about how shitty it was to deal with MoviePass and that whole company. So that's when I was like really became educated on like, yeah, fuck this company. Like it sucks that people are losing jobs and everything, but
Right.
it was not a good company for anyone, not for the movie studios and not for the theaters.
I just don't understand how they think that. And I get you get a lot of subscribers at $9.99, right? But again, like you're saying, people are going to see 30, 31 movies a month, which are typically $9.99 a piece. That just doesn't make any sense how they thought they were going to get their money's worth.
Well, I think they pay out about $3 per ticket. And then they split some of that with the movie studio. And that's what they were struggling with, because some movie studios were like, no, we're not going to pay more or remove some of those earnings on our end. So you know what? Our movies are no longer on your movie pass, and they would completely pull them out, especially when places like AMC and Cinemark were doing their own type of movie pass service. That's when they really started suffering, because the movie studios were like, we have options. We don't have to go to movie pass. It's not really benefiting us all that much. And that's where they really started. They were counting on, and we covered this over a year ago, about how they said, well, if someone goes 3 times a month, then we're okay profit-wise. But it's when they start going over that we're losing money on that sub. But they said, but not everyone's going over 3 months a month, so we're fine over 3 times a month. And that's not the case. People were going a shit ton to watch movies, even when they were limiting the movie pass. And when they started to, that's when they also started losing subscribers, because suddenly people couldn't, I don't want to say abuse the service, but like really take advantage of it.
Right. Well, see you later. Bye. There's plenty of other options out there where you can go and still get like 1 free movie a month and discounts and all that kind of stuff. So yes, definitely still options available.
Another option is staying at home every now and again and watching what is new on Netflix. We have our monthly segment with our February 2020 highlights.
So remember, this isn't the full list. This is just what we find interesting, what we think you guys will find interesting. You can go on Google or your favorite search engine, type in what's new on Netflix February 2020, and they will have the full list up there.
First one on the list is Back to the Future 3. Naturally, 1 and 2 must be under some different contract or some different service. 3 wasn't that bad.
Was that the one with the Wild West?
Yeah, it's the one where Doc Brown finds a love interest, and he has a couple kids, and they go and there's even a past Biff. I thought it was fine. I thought it was actually pretty decent.
Okay.
We'll play that in the store. It has a comic. Had a comic.
Next up, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street from 2010.
This is the one, the remake that starred the same actor, Jackie, who played Rorschach in Watchmen. He also played the villain in this, and I never watched this remake. I was happy for him in that starring role, essentially, that he got, and he was amazing in Watchmen as Rorschach. I can't think of a better actor, for the role after you see it. It's incredible how well that casting was for Watchmen. Putting aside everyone else, like the comedian, Dr. Manhattan, everyone in that movie. There was not a bad casting on that movie, but he himself was amazing, and I hope to see more from him. I think he's doing a little bit more television these days, but if you want to see him on the horror side, Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, no matter how it is, I know they changed the look of him a little bit, but I don't think you'll be watching it.
No, it's spooky. Why do you want me to watch spooky things?
Did you ever see the first one?
No, it's spooky.
Do you like Pirates of the Caribbean from Disney?
Yes.
Do you like Johnny Depp?
Yes.
His first role ever. Do you like young Johnny Depp?
No.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
His first role ever was in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay,
he gets sucked into a bed.
That's great. Is it spooky?
Not by today's standards, no.
No, I'm sure you told me all the time, oh, it's not spooky by today's standards, then it's terrifying.
If you did not think The Exorcist was scary, then you won't think anything is scary. That's only because
you showed me all the scary Exorcist scenes on YouTube.
Fine, I'll show you all the scary parts of Nightmare on Elm Street.
No, I'm okay.
Well, there's some comedies coming to Netflix as well. 7 of them. Police Academy 1 through 7. Holy shit.
What is this? What? I don't understand.
They're parody movies.
Okay.
Of like cop movies, essentially. And the first one was a massive hit, and clearly it kept going for years. I've only ever seen the first one, but hell, I might see all fucking 7 now.
We also have a 2008's Hancock.
Starring Will Smith, in which he's that jerky superhero. At one point, I think he literally puts a guy's head up another guy's ass.
What?
I might be thinking of a different movie, but
what
or
are
he
you
talks
watching?
about it was entertaining enough. I like the special effects a little bit, and it was a different idea, but I don't think it took off quite as much as they wanted.
I remember when it came out, but definitely wasn't something that was on my radar.
I usually see this next movie on those movie theater, like night out at the movie classics, and it's Purple Rain, Purple Rain.
I don't know what this is either.
Stars Prince. It's basically a music video movie.
Okay.
The whole time, though, he's just staring hard at characters like, and he's posing like, hey.
Well, I think we should watch it then.
It's kind of funny.
It reminds me, talking about Prince, I saw a video on YouTube the other day where it's kids watching old cartoons that have adult jokes in them, and they show them the Animaniacs one where they're like, fingerprints. And Dot is like, I don't wanna.
And Prince is literally on her. She's carrying him.
She's
and he's
carrying
like,
him, yeah. And the kids were like, oh yeah, because it's fingerprints she needs to find. And we're like, yeah, kids. It was really funny.
At least we know Purple Rain gave us that iconic poster of him on the motorcycle. We, many years later, got that Batgirl variant that kind of gave us that homage to it. That was a great month of variants.
Up next, we have Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
I've heard a lot about this. Have you seen it?
I haven't. I remember when I was younger, it used to come on like, I don't know, supposedly once a year. And two of my best friends watched it every time it came on, and they kept telling me I needed to watch it, and I never actually got the opportunity to.
You know if this is the Kevin Costner one?
I don't know. No, it stars that one who also played Wesley in Princess Bride.
Okay. Is this the one with Alan Rickman where he plays the villain?
Maybe.
I'm going to research that because if it is, I got to watch it. I have to
His
watch
eyes just got huge. He's like, I've got to watch it.
Because he's also that role, whatever he played, that villain is right there when he passed away. They had Snape, they had I think it's Norrington or Narrington, whatever.
Who?
And whoever the villain was in Robin Hood. And then the other role was the villain in Die Hard, Goobert or Gabert, whatever they call Hans Gruber.
It does have Alan Rickman in it.
So this is the one.
Yep.
All right.
This is it.
Get some Alan Rickman.
Yes, and Kevin Costner.
Hell yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different movie then.
Snape versus Superman's dad.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different movie. I'll still watch it with you, but this isn't the comedy one with the Dread Prince Roberts or Dread Pirate Roberts, whatever his name was.
Another one coming to Netflix is an original with season 1 of Lock and Key, based on the comic book series. It's now collected in 7 trades. I tripled my number of Lock and Key trades in the store because if this is anything like Umbrella Academy or The Boys, it's going to be another one that people are going to go out and look for the books on. So got to get out ahead on that.
What's the premise of Lock and Key?
I know very little about Lock and Key.
Cool.
I understand that you can unlock people's heads, and in the comics, it looks like a puzzle, and you can kind of look into how their mind works. The way they're doing it in the show, it's almost like you're teleporting or transported into their mind.
Okay.
A little bit different.
Yeah.
It's hard to do in the way that they did it in the comics, but it is more supernatural, a little bit of eerie, almost Cthulhu-ish type of horror to it.
Oh, horror? No, I'm out.
It doesn't look scary, though. It just kind of looks eerie.
I'm out.
I hope it's a hit. I hope it does well. I hope people like it.
I hope it does so well, and I hope you enjoy it, but don't watch it when I'm home. Okay, thanks.
Netflix is also doing an anime movie based on this video game. It is Dragon Quest, titled Your Story.
Did you ever play the Dragon Quest games?
I have not. I know that the anime characters or the box art characters are done by Akira Toriyama, so it just looks like a bunch of Trunkses, female and male Trunkses on the cover.
Good for him. Obviously, it did well.
Couple more here. We've got Starship Troopers. Did you ever see that one?
No. I think I heard about it. Wasn't it a comedy or something?
No, it was a 90s action movie, and it's slightly a spoof, maybe in some ways, of certain, maybe aliens a little bit, but the special effects were really good in it. They're kind of like these bug aliens that run around, and we're at war with them. The main guy who plays Rico, I remember as a kid when I was watching this, I was like, that guy could be Steve Rogers, because I was really big into Captain America with the comic books, and it was the perfect time for it, because not long after that, we got the Winter Soldier run by Brubaker, and it was all Cap at that point. But he was, he did good in the role, and I think he came back for the third Starship Troopers because his career never really went crazy
anywhere
high or anything.
Yeah.
But I think Starship Troopers is worth watching. I think it's a lot of fun.
And the final movie on this list is Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution.
I don't know what deal they have with Netflix, but I'm so grateful that they do because we get The Power of Us that just hit Netflix and it just hit video. Now we're getting the remake to Mewtwo Strikes Back, all done in the 3D animation now that a lot of kids are used to. And I know they did change enough from the original where now we're getting different angles than we got in the anime. Certain shots probably don't work as well when you're doing not live action, but a 3D remake of it. Are you at all worried about them remaking it? Or is it just kind of like it's nostalgia, they can remake it and it won't really hurt my feelings?
Yeah, I enjoyed that movie, but I don't think I enjoyed it enough where I was like, this is the greatest Pokemon movie ever.
They've definitely done way better ones since then. And I think this one, if anything, to see how they render these older Pokemon into that 3D version, Bulbasaur, Venusaur, we're going to see.
I am happy that we get to see Misty again. She's back, Misty and Brock and Ash, because he has not had as great buddies as those two. They were the best.
I can agree with that. I like the dynamic between the three. Back when Ash was kind of a jerk, whereas now they're trying to model him to be a positive role model for kids.
No, we didn't need that. We turned out fine.
Did we, though? Yeah, I'm excited to see that. And even that, if we watch it, we may review on the show. We'll see how it goes.
But that does wrap up our What's New on Netflix. If there's something you're really excited about, let us know on Twitter at ReasonsI'mBroke, at Kelli.
Let's head into the Patreon shout-outs, which are thank yous to everyone who make the show possible every single month.
Our first shout-out goes out to Alexander, whose Twitter handle is at Swordfish Show. You can also find him at purpleswordfish.com.
He tweeted out, quote, I witnessed the man cleaning the spare tire on his car today. The little donut tire that you store inside the trunk. I didn't know that level of pride in your car existed. Much respect, end quote.
I definitely do not have that level of pride in my car.
I mean, that's the kind of thing where if you ran out of other things to clean, I might as well clean this. It'd be like cleaning out the inside of that section as well. And I bet you they did. I'm
sure he did. Good for him. I'm glad that he loves his car so much and takes care of the things that he owns.
Next shout out goes out to Lourdes and Katie. You can find Katie on Twitter at CatCatFluffs.
Katie got an early birthday present with a full Breaking Benjamin music bundle.
I've heard of Breaking Benjamin. I don't know who they are, though.
I used to listen to a few of their songs during my emo phase.
They are an older band, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. They were around when I was in high school. Oof. And I'm a grandma now, practically. Yes, they've been around for a very long time. I didn't even know they were still making music. Maybe they aren't. But I really enjoyed their song. It spoke to teenage Kelli, who life was against me.
Is it like, you said it was emo. Is it rock?
Yes. It was kind of like Linkin Park-ish.
Gotcha.
But heavier.
Heavier than Linkin Park?
Yeah.
I'm not saying Linkin Park is heavy, but I mean, for high schoolers, that was considered heavy.
Yeah, it was. No, a little bit heavier than Linkin Park. I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed them when I was in high school. Now I just listen to Kids Bop and Maroon 5. So
she did mention it was like a remastered of their songs. So they're at least re-releasing a lot of their albums this way.
Good for them if they can still make money. This, again, a wonderful time for all this nostalgia to come back. If Linkin Park released a remaster, I'd probably buy it too because I threw away all my CDs.
So to anyone in their early 20s, CDs were... No, I'm just kidding. Next shout out goes out to Bobby on Twitter at Cuban Slim.
Bobby recently closed on his home, which is an upgrade from renting.
Congratulations,
That's amazing.
Bobby. That is awesome. Like I was telling him, it's a good feeling to know that you're now putting money towards something that you're eventually going to own. And bringing it back, I think one of the first times I ever felt that was with a car, where it's like you're not renting a car, you're not leasing a car. And that's something they taught us in Driver's Ed even. They're like, yeah, you can lease a car and have a brand new, latest car ever, but you're never owning it.
Right.
You pay for everything that you do to it. and they then put that same example onto where you live. And if you have that available, if you have that luxury of being able to do that, then all of the power to you. And it sounds like Bobby is there. So congrats, Bobby.
Yeah, such an amazing accomplishment, especially with where the market is right now. So,
and in Florida, too.
and in Florida. Oof. Next up, we have John, whose Twitter handle is at John72Tex, or on Instagram at Johnny2Chips.
John shared an image of his copy of Batman number 55.
Wow.
This is volume 1 Batman, not New 52,
right?
not current. And this features Joker on the cover. It's a really nice copy. If you want to see some nice Silver Age key issues, make sure to follow John on Instagram.
So thank you so much, John, Bobby, Lourdes, and Katie, and Alexander for your Patreon support.
If you too would like your shout out, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimbroke. You will get an ongoing shout out every single month for just as little as $1 a month. That equals out to 25 cents an episode. You get your shout out, and if you want more perks, there's more tiers at the $5 mark too.
But of course, our show will always be free. Best thing you can do is keep on listening and let your friends know about us.
If you want to connect with like-minded brokettes, head on over to our Discord lounge. There's a link in today's episode, and there's also one at thereasonsimbroke.com, but it is essentially an ongoing chat of not only other brokettes, but also other content creators.
And now, with all our thank yous completed, we can move into our comic book highlight of the week.
This week we have Detective Comics Annual number 3. This is written by Peter J. Tomasi with art by Sumit Kumar and Eduardo Risso with colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr. And this was our only title pickup this week that we were reading. Everything else was just variants from series that we're not reading. So I didn't put up the poll because inevitably it would have just been the one winner. It would have been a landslide.
Right.
Let's just say it was a landslide with Detective Comics Annual number 3 with Peter J. Tomasi behind it. He's awesome. I like Peter J. He's one of my favorite living comic writers at the time. What'd you think of this particular annual that focused on Alfred and Batman?
My very initial thought was that this one was a much faster read than most of the annuals that we've seen recently. I don't know if you felt that same way.
Yeah, there were only 2 stories in it, and It's still that same thickness and size.
So the first story took up the majority of the book. The last story was very small. But yeah, like you said, it focused. It's picking up from where we are, of course, in Detective Comics, where Alfred is gone. In Cambodia, just living his life. That's where he went.
Not dead.
Not dead, just over there. And so you kind of get to see a little bit of how the manor is holding up without Alfred there. And then you get to see a little bit of Alfred's background when he was a badass spy doing badass spy things. And just kind of like a little filler story, really, of Batman going to stop this person that Alfred had conflict with years ago. And there wasn't as much heart behind it as I would have liked, especially in the loss and the memory of Alfred. They touch on it very, very little. I'm almost wondering if they introduced this other character, one of Alfred's old colleagues, because she's going to take over as the Alfred of the manor. And that's almost what I felt like this book was trying to do, but then they didn't really reach that firm conclusion for me at the end.
Right, or that connection between Bruce and this character, because if you did, you would want to find someone that's on the level of Alfred, which we already have with Lucius Fox. He seems to be fitting in pretty well.
But is he cleaning the house?
He's not cleaning the house.
Clearly. He's not stocking the fridge.
I like how that's the break. Like, no, that's the deal breaker. You got to clean. But that's what the point of this story was, is that Bruce now has to learn to be Alfred himself, clean after himself, cook, and it's almost as if he's almost transitioning into the role. And I don't know if this is deliberate between the two, with these 5G plans that they're coming out with, but if he then transitions into taking care of Damien the way that Alfred used to take care of him, I think that'd be a really neat mirroring and kind of passing of the torch to what Alfred used to do, where he was running around as an agent, which as a detective, even in some cases, and doing, fighting crime. And that's what Batman is doing now, but on a more theatrical and grander scale.
Right. That would be interesting to see Damian take over, but I still don't, I don't know. I just don't ever in my life see Batman like, I'm just going to stop doing what I'm doing and I'm going to clean the house and I'm going to cook and I'm going to make sure everything's ready for Damian when he gets home. Like, no, he's going to find somebody who's going to do that for him because I don't honestly believe that Batman could ever change his mindset enough to the point where he would be okay being in the background and cleaning up and doing these other things that Alfred did.
Yeah, I think it would be more of like what they did in the Batman Beyond animated series, or even in that recent Batman annual, which was Tom King's final story between Batman and Catwoman, where didn't he just continue fighting until the very end?
Yes.
And I don't think they retired. It was just that he got that disease and they had to kind of just end it at that point. And then in Batman Beyond, he had the heart attack. And he had to pull the gun on the criminal, and that's when he said, shit, like, this is what I had to do to continue being Batman, and that's when he knew I have to stop, and he did. So he will be forced by himself or someone else or Father Time to stop being Batman rather than literally retiring. And I know that Batman Beyond did do a pretty decent job, even though we weren't huge fans of that cartoon, in still having him be the Alfred role to Terry McGinnis. And at some points, he busted out the Batman mecha suit and went in there and rescued fucking Batfake. Batfake. That was really cool. But yeah, I think this detective story, while I did enjoy it, and I think Peter J is an amazing writer, anyone that's in it for how it's going to progress the current detective story, I think they're safe in skipping it.
Right.
I did also like that backup story with artwork by Eduardo Risso. I love that art piece. It almost looked like Batman Year One-ish.
Right.
And that was his connection, once again, to this other character that we had in the previous one, in which Alfred is writing these letters, and he is, in his own way, explaining his first week in caring for Batman in a way, and translating these struggles that Bruce is going through into something that an MI6 or M16, whatever it is, agent would understand.
Yeah, it was really cool because the way he's describing things, obviously, Batman is coming home from his first week, doesn't even really have his costume yet till the end of the story, but is coming home beaten up, injured, pushing himself to limits that he doesn't even know that he can go to yet. And Alfred's writing this like, well, he woke up before noon, so I guess that's, for a billionaire playboy, I guess that's good. And still protecting what Batman is, but really showing her too that all these things that he did for him, all these behind the scenes things, and just being there to support and help him were really what he found joy and fulfillment in ultimately, right? He wasn't just caring for a billionaire playboy. He was continuing to do his secret agency things through Batman.
And caring for what was essentially his son at that point. I think if you did enjoy Detective Comics Annual number 3, make sure to put the Pennyworth Rest in Peace one-shot that's coming out in about a month onto your subscription, because that one is also going to have a story in it by Peter J. Tomasi, and that I think is going to serve as the more heartfelt goodbye to the character before he comes back, as you mentioned, from Cambodia.
Yeah, when he dumps his lady friends.
His lady? Oh, he's got many.
Yeah, he's in Cambodia with a whole bunch of hot ladies, all wearing bikinis.
Good on Alfred.
Yeah, great for him.
Let's head into our final portions of the show, which with the Brocat block and finally the 2020, or rather 2019 Broscars.
Before we get into the Broscars, we have 2 Brocat questions. The first one comes from @Ian, not Ian.
So that's why he spells it that way, because it's Ian, not Ian.
Oh, ooh, I messed up too.
So Ian asks, quote, "My wife got me the whole set of McDonald's Transformers toys. Open a shelf or keep in the bags," end quote.
Are you going to try to resell them?
See, you're asking the important questions. I immediately gave him my solution as a collector, and I'm guessing if he's a collector too, then he was like, yeah, that makes sense. I told him to keep them bagged for now and find the second set to open.
No, that's silly.
Why is that silly?
Why are you going to spend all that extra money?
They're McDonald's toys. They're not what all extra money.
You don't know. You don't know. It could be a lot. Are they current McDonald's toys or previous McDonald's toys?
That I didn't ask. I don't know if there's
my previous Burger King Kangaskhan was $13 and it was open, so don't even talk about them not being expensive.
I guess he said word, so whatever that means. He kind of agreed.
No, No, my thing is, are you ever planning on reselling them? If the answer is no, then open them up and display them and get your full enjoyment out of them if it's something that you really like. If you want to purchase a second set, okay.
Some may argue, though, that in 20 years, you're obviously not the same person that you were back then. So maybe 20 years from now, that you does want to sell them.
Well, then you just get a little bit less because they're open.
But you got to enjoy them, right?
I could have left all my Pikachu systems packaged up because I never get the opportunity to play them. But you know what? I opened them all and I played them all. Even that 2DS that I played once.
Like a true fan.
Like a true fan. Like a true collector. Here's the thing. Life is short. Money is cool, but it's about experiences and it's about what you get joy out of. And so if opening up however much you spent on those and seeing them displayed and getting to look at them every single day is what brings you joy, then do it. And 20 years from now, if you're like, man, I should have left them sealed, at least you got that enjoyment. Remember that.
Next question this week comes from Bobby at Cuban Slim.
Bobby asks, what do you think Diamond/Alliance could offer local comic book shops for PX exclusives that would drive more traffic into stores? When doing this, should they also limit them and serial number them? Would it matter? I think collectors would go nuts and really go for them. End quote.
I think the right route right now of doing like the PX exclusive Funko Pops that are limited to 10,000 pieces or 5,000 pieces, depending on what the Funko Pop is. If you do more of that and maybe translate it, as he said, into board games, like through Alliance, and you have like a special edition, let's say, and I know they're doing one for King of Tokyo, like they're doing an all black edition in which all the colors are different and there's only limited numbers. Do that more often. And I know it's like, what, more often, but it's supposed to be collectible, but do it with different things. And each of those things is going to be collectible to that particular fandom. And if you limit them, then of course that's going to make it even more sought after. And I think after doing that for several rounds or different ways, you can kind of figure out your number because you know those first ones are going to be just speculator driven and all these people trying to flip them and that's it. But I think that doing your version of this particular character or Funko Pop is exclusive to comic book stores, maybe doing a card shop / comic shop exclusive board game that only the big accounts like comic stores and card shops could get and not the big box stores like Target. And I know that sounds weird because if you put your game in big box stores, you've now sold thousands of copies. But if it's kind of a lower end introduction, it's a game that's still coming in. Yes, it's award winning when you tested it out at markets, but it hasn't proven itself on the mass market. Try to make that limited to comic stores because then if it is a hit, gamers have to go into card and comic stores to get that game. And I do think that would benefit everyone, but that's my ideal for that.
I have no towel in this race, no whatever the phrase is.
Gotcha.
Horse. I have no horse in this race. I don't know why I said towel.
I think the other thing they could do too is offering exclusive, let's say for board games, a lot of times they'll have like an exclusive character for Kickstarter campaigns if you backed it. Maybe doing something like that for card shops or local shops, and that they get the exclusive. If you buy it at your local store, then you get this additional extra pack of characters that you can use in the board game, and you can only get them here. I think that would be awesome. And I know companies like Pokemon already do a lot for locally owned stores in which they run their Pokemon League, they sell their product for them, they keep the fandom going. I think if you have that kind of support behind you, you can really push the product and you can make the employees like really honestly be appreciative and happy in pushing a product that works like Pokemon. And it's proven that it is something that is going to drive sales for everyone.
So thank you so much, Ian and Bobby, for your questions this week. If you have a question you want us to answer on the show, of course, send it over on Twitter at ReasonsI'mBroke at Kelli. Do you have anything else to cover about your week before we get into the BROSCARs?
I think the only thing I have to say is the sequel to last week's rant about how people dogpile on negative news.
Yeah.
That local store that closed down next to mine, that property is being bought up by another larger grocery store. So we're going to get already this year another business going into that spot. And how many messages and texts that I receive about now there being another grocery store opening up in its place.
Well, you got one from me.
When did you send yours?
I mean, maybe it was like a Facebook comment or something. I commented on it.
You sent me that one. Okay, then 1. Everyone else, every single other person that sent me the negative thing about how, oh, did you hear what's happening? Not a single one of them said, hey, did you hear what's happening? Hey, good news for you. Hey, this is awesome. Check this out. None of that. None of those people sent over the link.
Now, to be fair, I have seen many links on the original store closing, and not a single one has popped up of the new store opening. So I know that you found it, but I don't think it was as widely spread and shared.
Because people don't fucking spread or share good news. They mainly spread bad news.
People spread dog rescue videos. That's good news.
And they also spread the abuse videos as well, like find this owner, find this piece of shit.
They also spread coronavirus.
There you go. That's the big thing right now. Memes on that.
Somebody at work was like, did you hear about coronavirus? I'm like, don't even talk about it here. Why are you going to bring everybody down and make everybody scared? And they're like, but if we don't talk about it, that's what they want. And I'm like,
that's not true.
I said, as a mom, I am so anxious about everything. So please just don't bring it into the workplace. Just stop.
Or you could tell them that you're more likely to die from the flu.
Yeah.
Which is way more common.
Which is going around everywhere. I'm down 2 people tomorrow because of the flu. So
there you go.
It's my life.
How about you? Anything in your week that you wanted to jump into before the award show?
It's been a pretty standard week. School started up again, so I'm stressed. Learning a lot, but yeah, it's a lot of work just trying to keep up and balance everything and trying my best.
Mm-hmm.
Leo is in a mood. That's our Leo update. He's growing. He's almost 2.5. So
yeah, he's in a growth spurt.
Yeah. So he just, any little bit of disappointment that he gets because he hasn't built that self-regulation skills cognitively, it's the end of his world and he just flops on the ground and cries. The other day, he wanted me to, I don't know, sit on the couch with him or something. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom and then I'll sit on the couch. And that wasn't what he wanted. So he kept opening the bathroom door and slamming it until I was done and crying the whole time. And I was like, joke's on you, kid. This is the only time I've been alone all day. Like, you may be screaming, but I can go on my phone and tune you out.
Yeah, as long as you know they're okay and they're just having a tantrum, then
right.
This is that stage where they're going to be testing those things. And I think we've both connected on that of like, yeah, we're not going to give in to that. So
right.
That's not going to work here. Ace has learned that. She begs for food, but not like she does at my parents'.
Or my parents, yeah.
Where she's like barking at them. And it's like, Ace, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're like a different dog in this house.
But then it comes back to that meme of like what you do as a parent and then what you do as a grandparent.
Yeah.
And like, it's 100% accurate for both of our parents because I'll sit at my parents' house, right? And Leo's over there and he'll sign that he's hungry. And so I'll say, okay, well, there's some, cashews on the table or here's some green beans or something. And he'll look at it and keep saying he's hungry. And Mom will go, Kelly, go get him butterbread. And I'm like, he doesn't need butterbread, Mom. He doesn't need, he has green beans and cashews. And she's like, but he wants it. but he doesn't need it, Mom.
Right.
He can eat healthy things. Like this morning, he kept going to the pantry to get a cookie. And I was like, nope, here's this bowl of green beans. Eat that instead. And he like threw his body on the ground. So I ate his green beans. Then he's like, oh, no, wait, I want those. And he ate an entire can of green beans instead of that one cookie that he wanted. So
nice.
See, he's fine.
Well, as busy as you are and all the balancing that you've been doing, I do want to thank you on here for taking the time and the chance to do tonight's episode because we wouldn't have had one as easily this week, if at all, if you hadn't sat down and done this. And I know you have a lot going on tomorrow and you have to wake up hours from now. So I think we all do appreciate you sitting down and taking this time for us.
Thank you. I will be awake in 4 hours for anyone who wants to know.
Let's move forward with this year's 2020 BROSCAR Awards.
This year's BROSCARs are a little bit different than the last time we had them because it's not just Daniel's picks. And it's not just the correct picks, which are mine. We also have the Broquette picks. So we posted a poll for all of these so that our Broquettes could vote. You could get your vote in. And we have the winners here tonight.
So I know all of the filmmakers, actors, supporting actors, every one of the people that worked on these movies are listening very intently for their one of 3 chances
waiting
to win their BROSCAR Award. And we have the results tonight.
we didn't talk about our clothes. That's the best part of the BROSCARs, is what everyone's wearing.
What are you wearing, Palpa Kelly, to the BROSCAR Awards?
I am dressed in my very best sweatpants from El Hollister. And a $3 t-shirt from Target that says "Too Lit to Quit" with the Ninja Turtles on it.
I am wearing a t-shirt.
Ooh.
It could be considered vintage. It is as old as 5 years old.
Wow.
The logo looks to have some possibly purposefully or simply worn out logo cracks in it. But I think it is enough to... It got pictures going on the red carpet.
Yeah.
Purple carpet, because that's our logo, actually.
Perfect. Yes. The purple.
Not making this up as I go. It's considered vintage.
And who did your shoes? What designer made your shoes?
I don't remember. They're custom. That's why I don't remember, because there's no logo.
Hanes socks.
Oh, you're talking about my socks.
Well, I mean, you're not wearing shoes, so we're making a statement by both being barefoot.
Yeah, it's a protest.
At least my toenails are still pretty. They're still in my...
You got them done for the award show.
I got them done for vacation a month ago, but it's fine. We're parents. What do you expect?
All right, now can we go into the first category?
Now
Here we go. The winners for first category, it is visual effects.
Your nominees were Ford v Ferrari, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Ad Astra, 1917, and The Irishman.
And we have 2 winners in this category, as 2 of us agreed on one of these movies. The winner for visual effects from the Brocat Core, from you, is 1917. And the winner from both Palpa Kelly and I, we agreed on this one, for also visual effects, is Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Amazing. 1917 was a close one for me. It almost won because all that blood and gore and like missing legs. That was pretty great.
There were some great things. It was a great pick by the Brocat Core. I wasn't leaning as much towards 1917 for the visual effects because the cinematography, I think, carried a lot of that, and so did the directing. And but something like The Irishman and the effects in de-aging these actors, and I know it was a little rough on some scenes, but to do it on most of the movie, that was incredible. But honestly, it edged it well out with Godzilla King of the Monsters, because those monsters, and I think you'd agree with this, there wasn't one scene in that movie that you went, that didn't look quite right, or that was, they looked like real fucking monsters. And I think the key to that was they did motion capture. Even with Monster Zero, 3 people, each one was a head, and then they CGI'd over it, and it's like, that's what gives these things not only personality, but realism.
Well, I think they did a lot of great stuff too, where a lot of the times there was a lot of darkness around the monster. So they had a little more leeway, and it wasn't just like bright light where you could really sit there and pick it apart. Right.
And that's something that I know a lot of viewers complained about. They're like, well, this one was still really dark, and you can really see the monsters. And I didn't think so. Even in the first Godzilla, I wasn't like, man, I just can't really see them. And it's like, no, this is kind of what I expected out of a more modern Godzilla film, especially one with not a ginormous budget. And this one did, and we got a ton of monsters out of it. We got great shots of Rodan in the daylight when he was coming out of the volcano, and when he was fighting Monster Zero at one point. There's plenty of daylight in there. I don't know where this all comes from, but the visual effects were incredible in this, and well worthy of the BROSCAR Awards, and well picked as well by the Core in 1917.
Our next category is cinematography.
Your nominees were Jaron Blasch for The Lighthouse, Rodrigo Prieto for The Irishman, Lawrence Sher for Joker, Faden Papamichael for Ford v Ferrari, your Papa Michael, and finally Roger Deakins for 1917.
Once again, we have 2 winners in this category. First up, Daniel's pick. We have Jaron Blasch for that weirdo Lighthouse movie.
And you and the Brocat Core agreed on Roger Deakins for 1917. Congratulations to both Jarin and Roger for The Lighthouse and for 1917. Both incredible movies. I talked about how great 1917's camera work was, but Lighthouse, it was hand in hand, honestly. It was really tough for me to go with Lighthouse, but the shots, when I go back and I remember both of these movies, there were so many more in The Lighthouse that were like, that's going to stick with me for a while. And I didn't feel quite that heavy of an impact in 1917.
The thing that impressed me most about 1917, and while it ultimately got my vote, I mean, one, Lighthouse was just real trippy. There were some pretty interesting shots, but I would argue, and I don't know, right? I'm not a cinematographer, but I would argue that because it was in black and white, it made it a little easier to hide imperfections than if it had been in full color. Because everything was much more muted on the screen, so your eye didn't really jump to all the different things in the Lighthouse. But with 1917, and we've talked about this several times, the entire movie, a lot of the movie, felt like it was done in one single take. And so to be able to have the camera where it was, right? And then obviously there were cuts, but you come back from a cut and it's still kind of in the same place and it's still moving and keeping with that. And it was just, I almost felt like a fly on the wall for the entire thing. So that's why I got my vote.
The next category for this year's BROSCAR Awards is Animated Feature. And your nominees were
The Lion King, Missing Link, Toy Story 4, Klaus, and How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World.
And in this category, we have one winner.
One winner!
As all three of us agreed. Congratulations to Klaus for winning this year's Best Animated Feature BROSCAR Awards.
Great job, Klaus. This is on Netflix. It is a Christmas movie, kind of the origin of Santa Claus, how he got started. A much darker take on a Santa Claus story, I think, than anything that I've seen prior. Even with that A Year Without Santa Claus weird stop motion thing, and that was pretty dark as a kid. But definitely not a kid's movie, made for adults, but I just felt that the story was great, had a lot of nods to maybe things we had already heard about Santa, but giving it a different spin. But what really solidified it for me was the animation. It was a much different style than I think I've ever seen before, at least very rarely seen, and it just all together made for a really strong movie.
It really did, and I know it fell into that same trap that a lot of these animated all ages features kind of go into, in which you have that low point with the main character where people kind of discover the truth about them, and then they have to kind of win everyone back. But every one of the movies in this category have that in their own way. But when you're looking at animated feature, you're looking at more than just the story. And as you mentioned, the animation was incredible. It made it look like almost as if it were stop motion. But what they did is they had a 2D look to it in a way, but they shadowed it as if they were in 3 dimensions. And I think you had mentioned that when we were watching it, or I had found it on the making of the movie. And I think that really gave it a look that you don't see, or at least I haven't seen,
right,
on any kind of project.
So congratulations, Klaus. Up next, we have the award for screenplay.
And your nominees were The Irishman, Joker, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Little Women, and The Two Popes.
Once again, we have 2 winners for this category. First one, as chosen by Daniel, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
And the other one, chosen by the Brocat Core and the Palpa Kelly, is Joker.
I mean, Joker was just a great movie.
Congratulations to both Joker and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Screenplay on my end for that. There's so much quotable content in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And the different stories, different characters, and the rewritten history to an actual event all somehow managed to work in one movie. And that's not easy to pull off. So much credit to the screenwriters behind Once Upon a Time.
The only thing, and there were so many great moments in Once Upon a Time, but the only reason it didn't win for me is because I still had to go and look up that original story.
Gotcha.
And because it required more background knowledge to really understand and appreciate it. Now that I have that knowledge, I would love to take the moment and watch it again and see what more I could get out of it. But because I had to take that extra step, that's what knocked it out.
So what made you give it to Joker, especially considering that they didn't follow the screenplay to what we saw on the big screen?
But I didn't read the screenplay. I just have what was on the big screen. And what was on the big screen was great. Once again, and we've talked about it so many times on this show, but I think the Joker just hit that sweet spot for so many people to bring out so many thoughts and so many discussions, and it did, I honestly believe, have so many great quotable moments too, like when he's writing in his journal and talking about how nothing makes sense and all these different things that I've seen quoted a million times on Facebook and in pictures, and all these different things that again bring that discussion about mental health to light and hopefully help some people ultimately in the end. What's your favorite quote from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
That's a great idea, Kato. I like that one a lot.
Why?
Because he's gonna fight goddamn Bruce Lee. There's, I also like, I'm as real as a donut, motherfucker. There's a lot of funny shit in that.
Oh my god. I don't. Okay.
Or how about when he's if you don't get these lines, I'm gonna blow your fucking heads out. You couldn't have just 2, 3. You have to have 7, 8 drinks. Well, that's it. No more. There's a lot of awesome. I also like the scene in which he talks about the triple alliteration that Leonardo did, and the director was praising him on that. And there's a lot in there. I really enjoyed.
Our next category is supporting actor.
We have 3 winners in this category, as not one of us fully agreed on this one, but some great choices. Your nominees are Joe Pesci as Russell Buffalino in The Irishman, Margot Robbie as Kayla Pospisil. Sorry. I don't know the actual person's name either. I'm sure if I saw her, for Bombshell, Willem Dafoe as Thomas Wake in The Lighthouse, Brad Pitt as Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Jennifer Lopez as Ramona Vega in Hustlers.
Your first winner comes from the Brocuts. That's Joe Pesci for The Irishman.
Your second winner comes from me, Brad Pitt as Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Of course. I could have seen that coming a mile away. And your final winner comes from me with Willem Dafoe from The Lighthouse.
Great choice. Really, really good choice in Willem Dafoe. That was an amazing role he did.
I truly believed that he was a crazy murdering gay man. I very much believed it.
Yeah, that was
who was sexually attracted to a lighthouse.
Right. They both were.
Yeah, by the end of it, yeah.
Yeah. Naked and standing up there, basking in the light,
getting off.
Joe Pesci was a good one by the Brocuts. He plays that role of head of the mafia. Don't betray him. Don't double cross him. He has his mind as straight as it can be in this kind of business, where he had all his ducks lined out, and then it ends up being just a story of Father Time eventually takes you out, no matter who you are. And that was a great role for him, and they were able to age him down pretty nicely in that with the special effects. For me, it was Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He plays a stuntman, but he's also the stuntman in Leonardo's personal life, which I think reflects really well at the very end of the movie. And even though he is a murderer, you find out that he fucking killed his wife.
Right.
The way, the confidence, and in the manner that he does everything else in day to day, there's not one moment, I think, where you're like, oh man, how's he going to get out of this? He's going to get out of it in some way. He's an amazing friend to Leonardo DiCaprio, who's not really paying him an amazing amount. He's not really working, unfortunately, because Leonardo is struggling, and he's doing housework and driving him around because of his DUIs as a good worker and a good friend. And he played that role really believably. When he had to beat someone up, you bought it. When he had to take care of his friend, or when he had to watch out for someone else, or deny sexual favors from someone who turns out to could have gotten him in jail, all of that worked out in his delivery and in the way he did the role.
It was a close one because I did really enjoy Brad Pitt's performance as well. Like you said, really nailed that, but I feel like Willem just had to do so much more crazy.
Yeah, that scene where he's getting buried alive, that was
pretending
really
to be
good
dead,
role.
And then like, ah!
So
crazy.
good. Next category comes in leading actor.
Your nominees are Renee Zellweger for Judy Garland in Judy, Christian Bale for Ken Miles, Ford v Ferrari, Charlize Theron for Megyn Kelly in Bombshell, Joaquin Phoenix for Joker, and Leonardo DiCaprio, who played Rick Dalton in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
And this is the second category in which all three of us agreed on this definitive winner. Congratulations to leading role, Joaquin Phoenix for Joker.
We all saw this coming. We all knew.
No contest. I mean, there's you look at this great list of leads, and even your second pick, you're like, yeah, Joaquin Phoenix really killed it. He nailed it. And this is a role in which he fully immersed himself into, which, as we learned from past quotes by Jack Nicholson, when he was talking about the death of Heath Ledger, and he's like, it's dangerous to get that deep into a character like the Joker, and you don't come out quite the same, and that's something he said he warned Heath Ledger about as well at one point. And Joaquin Phoenix, he's a method actor in many ways, and he's gonna get into this role, and you saw some of the behind the scenes stuff he was doing. He wasn't going to rehearsals. He was going into it as genuine as possible for the role. And it paid off in a big way on the big screen, because not only is this film receiving constant wins for him in that leading role, but, he brought that character to life, this character that was heavily inspired by the Killing Joke graphic novel.
I definitely don't foresee this movie having been as successful as it was without someone who 100% made us believe that he was going through these struggles, and within that made us sympathize with him as greatly as we did, and say, yeah, at some point that could be me, that could be my neighbor. Because the things that he went through, so many people in our lives go through as well, and could easily fall down there. It just takes one bad day, right? And that's the whole message of this film, and he absolutely nailed it.
Next massive category for this year is Best Director. Your nominees are Robert Eggers for The Lighthouse, Sam Mendes for 1917, Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Todd Phillips for Joker, and Martin Scorsese for The Irishman.
Once again, we have two different winners for this category. The first comes from our Brokettes with Sam Mendes for 1917.
And the other winner comes from Kelli and I, in which we agreed on Todd Phillips for Joker.
I think when you look at the award season this year, both with the lesser known Oscars and the BROSCARs, the two movies that are going to dominate, I definitely think, are Joker and 1917. So once again, definitely a toss-up for these two movies. Ultimately, I think you and I both connected more with the Joker and the message behind that, and what was put forward and the acting and everything. But 1917 was still a very solid movie from beginning to end, which, with the way it was filmed and some of those scenes, I know we've talked about it together before, but that scene where he wakes up after passing out, right? And there's just that light that's going off, that flare, and how beautiful that was, and the pacing of the movie, and the very end, right? When you find out the whole reason he didn't want to do this and the reason he doesn't want to go home isn't selfish. It's so much deeper than any of us thought that it was. And I mean, both really great picks. We could talk about Joker forever. yeah,
and that's the thing. You mentioned that scene in 1917 where he wakes up in the flares, and that was that's what I remember when I think of 1917. That's the first scene that comes to mind, because it was so well directed. But for Joker, it's like, oh my God, how many of those scenes do we look back on and remember? I mean, something as simple as him sitting on the bus was filmed incredibly well. And that's something that you see in the promotional material right now with all these award shows. And Todd Phillips earned it incredibly. He fucking killed it with the Joker movie. So congratulations to both Sam and Todd for taking home some BROSCARs this year.
And our final category is Best Picture. Your nominees are Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Irishman, Ford v Ferrari, 1917, and Joker.
Three winners. First time ever, 3 winners for Best Picture at your BROSCAR Awards. Winners are Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That is my pick for this year. From the Brokehead Core is 1917. And from Kelli is the Joker movie.
The Joker movie. I don't think any of us are surprised by any of these winners, but I will say this whole list, right? I didn't really watch Irishman, but definitely Ford v Ferrari was another one that I enjoyed so much more than I thought I would going into it. And I, left the theater and researched the real story behind it, and then I wanted to get a race car and go back. So it was really strong contenders this year, and we had the great opportunity to see, I think, more Oscar nominations and BROSCAR nominations than we ever have in previous years, which was, all these movies that we were interested in going to see ended up being so phenomenal. But I mean, Joker is definitely the best, so.
Really good movie. Yeah, it's a great pick. I don't think there was a wrong pick in this one. And the BROCAT Corps seemed to have really been enamored by 1917, as had so many wins in this one and taking home Best Picture. For me, you've heard it. I said Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was my favorite movie of last year. And after having seen more of last year's movies, it still remains my favorite movie of last year, followed very closely by Joker. So great pick by Kelli, and it's just Once Upon a Time. I've rewatched that since getting that in 4K over the Joker. So now that tells you how much I really liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
But I will argue that Joker is a much more difficult movie to digest.
Yeah.
It's very intense. So while I don't know that I'll rewatch that movie anytime soon, I would probably definitely rewatch Once Upon a Time over Joker. It's still my Best Picture pick, because even if you don't rewatch it, the takeaway that I took from that was so much greater than any other movie that I watched this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a lot more of a kind of a ride in a way, but it's still incredibly well done, and there's some great messages in that rewritten history between the characters. But you're right, Joker is there's a lot more to digest, as you mentioned, and I think overall 1917, Once Upon a Time, and Joker were all really good films, and great congratulations to all three for taking home a BROSCAR for Best Picture. Great picks, and honestly, I want to thank all of the people who voted at this year's BROSCAR Awards in all the categories, and I'm sure the winners are very gracious and they have immense gratitude for taking home the BROCAT BROSCAR picks and two categories in which all three of us agreed.
Yeah. Absolutely fantastic job to every single person who was nominated. It was a really strong year for movies last year. Whatever year.
Yeah, we were happy that we were able to do the BROSCAR Awards again this year. And I know a couple of you did mention them, like, oh, you're going to do them this year? And we made it happen for all of you, and all of you got involved and participated in the winners and in this discussion, especially on the Discord channel. So massive thanks to all of you for helping us make this happen again this year.
But with that, we will wrap up the show, because it is time for the BROSCAR after party.
Yep, that's right.
Where I go to sleep.
And I also try to get some sleep as I watch Leo very early in the morning.
Yes. Not Leo DiCaprio.
I hope not. He got himself into so much shit. He also had the greatest piece of acting that little girl had ever seen.
He sure did.
I love when they cut and he has that tear that he kind of wipes off. Yeah, so good.
It was wonderful.
But thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. I've been Twins Daniel.
And I am Emperor Kelli.
And BROCAT Corps. All will be well. You know what the Joker movie got?
What'd it get?
It got what it fucking deserved!
A Best Picture award?
Yeah, and a couple other things. You said Best Lead?
Yeah.
What it fucking deserved!
And Best Cinematography? I mean, Best Screenplay?
What it fucking deserves! Has a different context after you've seen that movie. Like, I guess, clap.
Yay. Well, when you're saying it that angrily.
That's how he said it, though.
I get it, but he was angry about it.
Well,
you don't have to be angry about these awards.